Hey there and welcome back to Rimworld. My name is Pete and today we complete another episode of our Rimworld Extreme Desert Challenge. In the last episode, the steakhouse saw a lot of action. We were attacked by mechanoids and Edmo stepped up big time, but we also launched an attack of our own, and that ultimately resulted in Steak earning himself the title of Knight. Now today we will complete the official knighting ceremony, and I apologize for the episode going up a few days later than usual. That 40-minute Mutant Year Zero episode kind of screwed over my schedule for the weekend. But the slight delay also has a neat little side effect, because Tofu already has some fan art finished for the very episode that you are currently watching, so stay tuned for that, as usual at the end of the video. In any case, let's get to the action. As you can see, it's slowly getting dark in the steakhouse, but our colonists are still busy constructing another bedroom. The reason for that is quite simple. We have another guest arriving in a few hours, and really our only objective is to keep them happy, and I would argue that a bedroom might help with that. In anticipation of our guest, we also have Edmo make a few fine meals, because I am of course talking about the Imperial Praetor Synodanis. Now, Synodanis already paid the steakhouse a visit back in the very first episode of the series. Today she makes a return and she will stick around for 11 days, during which we will have to keep her satisfied, while she won't really contribute anything. As a reward, we can earn ourselves a bit more honor, but this time we are not actually giving that to Steak, but instead to his wife Redhawk. I think that as Steak's wife, she is next in line to slowly advance the royal ranks. At least unlocking psychic abilities for her might make some sense, so I think 3 units of honor are a good first step. And here we are, Synodanis has arrived, and as we can see, she is not happy at all. Now, we are not the reason for that. You can see she is actually injured. She is also tired and apparently hasn't had any food in quite some time, but luckily all of those are things that we can fix rather easily. Since our guest bedroom is not quite finished just yet, however, poor Alistair will have to make some room for the time being. Don't worry though, we will have another place to sleep in no time. At least for her first night, Synodanis is occupying the hospital anyway. Later that night then, with bedroom number 6 slowly taking shape, we have another problem on our hands, as our prisoner is once again going berserk. Now, we already saw once how Edmo chose to deal with this situation. Still, let's give him a second chance. So, wooden club in hand, he will now attempt to play the pacifier once more. And there we are, the prison break attempt has quickly come to an end. Edmo himself only suffered a small bruise. We can see very clearly though that he once again made liberal use of his hand talon. As a matter of fact, I think it's safe to say that our prisoner was clawed to within an inch of her life, which makes me believe that Edmo may not be the best suited candidate for these types of tasks. So as we learn of another donkey pregnancy, we can once again watch Redhawk go to work. I don't want to hear that we are not taking care of our prisoners, even though next time we might perhaps send somebody else. And maybe to celebrate the arrival of Synodanis, Troy is then starting his day off by throwing a party, so our colonists and their guest can spend some quality time in the workshop. Not really the place that I would have chosen, but who knows, maybe Troy has a special affection for that drug lab of his, even though he has not made any flake in quite some time. With the festivities concluded, we are then back to the grim reality out here in the desert, as partially thanks to Edmo's efforts, our prisoner comes down with an infection. 1 dose of herbal medicine should suffice for now though. If that's not enough, then we still have more powerful options, but for the time being, I trust in Redhawk's experience. Now, like I said, one more quest that we want to complete today is Steak's night ceremony, and as you can see here, our throne room needs a few upgrades for that. The 2 columns are actually being placed right now as we speak. The harp, on the other hand, could be a slightly more complicated endeavor, because we need to craft that first and it costs a decent amount of wood. However, we have a few days until the ceremony has to take place, so I think we should have plenty of time to prepare everything. So for the time being, let us focus on something that I feel is a bit more pressing, namely the multi-analyzer. This device will not only improve research speed, but it's actually also needed to unlock quite a few technologies, and I would count ourselves lucky that we have enough plasteel components and gold to actually be able to build it at this point. Especially the gold can at times be a problem, but thankfully not for the steakhouse. And so in the afternoon the multi-analyzer is constructed, Troy now works 10% faster, and for the following night Alistair also has a nice place to sleep again, and with that we can now comfortably accommodate everyone. With Admo then making more fine meals for our guest Cynodanus, we have the royal tribute collector pass by, but as usual we have nothing to spare. Our gold will safely remain with us, and our prisoner is hopefully also going to become a more permanent part of the colony. That is, if Admo doesn't see the next prison break as an opportunity to do something worse. So the night passes by uneventfully, and we are starting the next morning off with some major construction work. You may have wondered already what's going to happen with that central courtyard in the middle of our base, and well, that exact question will be answered today. First of all though, we are making some slight changes to our research room. After all, we can noticeably increase the room that courtyard provides if we tuck our research area a bit more in the corner here. Now that we have a dedicated hospital, we also no longer need any extra space inside of this room, so the only space we're leaving here is to perhaps construct a second high-tech research bench at some point down the line. All in all, with these changes we can decrease the room size by 10 tiles from 40 down to 30, which means we also don't need quite as many sterile tiles to keep the place clean and research flowing nicely. However, all of that is really just the beginning. After a few more rearrangements, you can now see just how much space we have to work with, so up next, let us construct ourselves a proper dining area. And yes, we are going with a big 3x3 table that will eventually be able to host up to 12 people, because I really don't feel like overhauling this again anytime soon. Who knows, maybe this setup will even last us until the end of the series. In the evening then, with our new common room slowly taking shape, we receive another quest. However, I don't think we will be accepting this one. Yes, technically this would be an easy source of honor, goodwill or a good item, and yes, we would also have over half a year to finish construction, but just to put this into perspective, a monument size of 19 by 48, that is about the size of the entire center part of our base at the moment, not counting the hydroponics farm and the animal stables. Not to mention that the building costs would run us at about 5,500 units of stone, which is, in my opinion, the only feasible construction material for a project of this size. So no, I don't want to spend the next 3 episodes just building a monument. I think the game has a few more exciting opportunities still waiting for us, so we will let this one slide. Instead, we can skip ahead to the next morning, which begins with another stone-intensive project, because yes, our entire common room will now receive beautiful marble flooring. Originally, my idea was to make this out of wood for a slightly more cozy feeling, but as you can see, wood is currently in short supply, and we also still need 150 units for that harp we're making later. If you're wondering, by the way, the area around the table will eventually get some carpet. We haven't actually researched that yet though, but we'll do that soon and I don't feel like wasting resources. Speaking of research, at this point Troy also unlocks moisture pumps, so if we wanted to, we could now finally get rid of all the soft sand around the base. Unfortunately though, every pump costs a good amount of components, and this is definitely not something that we need to get done urgently. Still, since components remain a bit of a bottleneck, fabrication is up next. That is also what we needed the multi-analyzer for, and completing it will allow us to construct the fabrication bench, and with that we can finally make components ourselves. Now, continuing the day, we are deconstructing some of the walls of our storage room, because a good chunk of those are actually marble walls, and that is what we currently need plenty of to finish our flooring. This also allows us to replace some of the doors for the storage room. I think I have mentioned this before. Eventually, we are only going to store all the products from our hydroponics farms in here. We will also be using a lot of shelves for that, and overall, I think multiple access points are a good idea. Now, our new common room is not quite getting finished on this day, but on the next morning, work continues and we are making some progress. That is until our prisoner once again demands attention. Looks like we haven't been feeding her enough. Definitely an oversight on my part. However, this time Edmo is not going to be the one taking care of the problem. With a full suit of marine armor, Jake should be more than well protected. So even though he is not really our most competent melee fighter, he should have no issue here. And indeed, the prison break has ended with comparatively little injuries, at least on the prisoner side. Jake, on the other hand, managed to somehow lose an entire toe, even though he is once again wearing a full suit of armor, and even though he was fighting a naked opponent. So feel free to interpret this as an I told you so moment for Edmo. Jake will definitely have a permanent memory of the event, and should we eventually be able to recruit our prisoner here, I doubt the two of them will become best friends anytime soon. Now, after Redhawk is done tending to both patients, we can quickly jump over to Troy, who is spending a bit more time making flake, but apart from that, the rest of the day remains fairly uneventful. And yes, our common room is still not finished because we had a bit of field work to take care of. Our animals have hauled some marble chunks back to the base though, so we should have enough materials soon. On the next morning then, you can see work in the common room continues. We also have a sizable harvest of psychoid leaves coming in, and with all of the steel we have lying around, we might as well construct ourselves 2 additional hydroponics basins. Slowly but steadily, we want to grow everything we have inside of those. After all, soil quality out here in the desert is really not that great. Our common room, meanwhile, is completely done at this point. Flooring everything will hopefully also cut down on the amount of dirt that is carried through our base, but of course, being in the middle of the desert, we will likely never be able to completely eliminate that problem. Still, we have reached a small milestone in our construction project. I have a few more things planned for the common room, most notably some entertainment options, but we will very likely not get those done today. In the evening then, we can once again check in with Troy, who has spent the last few hours making more flake. Our supply has grown to over 160 units at this point, so a trade ship or perhaps a caravan, that would be awfully convenient right about now. And so another night rolls around, and except for Steak and Redhawk, who are doing their thing inside of their chamber, only our guest Cynodanus is still awake, but even she eventually retreats to the comfort of her own room. On the next morning then, another Thrumbo corpse is butchered, as our animals are slowly but steadily running out of kibble, and until the evening, that is about the most eventful thing that happens. However, the day is not done yet, and Steak's night ceremony is still waiting for us, and in order to complete that, we need a harp, and in order to make a harp, we need some wood. And of course, we could now wait a few days for our cacti to be fully grown, but I think I have found a more straightforward solution. Our prisoner is constantly unhappy anyway, and the wooden doors guarding the perimeter of the base could use a stone upgrade as well, and with all of that, we can easily acquire the 150 units needed. Now, we could use a simple crafting spot to make the harp, but that would take a long time, much longer than using a smithy for example, which is normally intended to be used for this. Now, the smithy does cost us 3 components, leaving us with only 1, and I agree that is cutting it awfully close, but I am hoping for a trader to pass by soon, who should be able to help us out at least until we can make our own. Now, like I said, the harp itself costs 150 units of wood and takes some time to make. As our best craftsman, the task falls to Edmo, but before he can start working, we have bigger things to worry about. Just in that moment, several groups of traps people are attacking the steakhouse. They are not too well equipped, but they are numerous. and they also don't hesitate too long to begin their assault. Still, we have guns and they do not. This is actually also the first time that Cynodanis can get actively involved in anything happening around the colony. So let's see if 8 turrets and 5 colonists are enough to drive the enemies back. By the way, I think I just showed you 2 attacking groups earlier, but there are in fact 3 of them, all consisting of 8 persons. And unfortunately, it also looks like they are more or less all arriving at the same time. Yes, they are funneled into our kill box one after the other, which makes things a little easier, but still, some micromanagement is necessary to keep all of our colonists safe. Eventually then we drive away the first group, but Admo has gotten himself caught up in melee combat, although almost as if by some miracle he escapes the fight without any injuries, and shortly after group number 2 flees as well. That leaves us only with a handful of hostiles who are still actively attacking, and as you can imagine, killing enough of them does not take too long, so after a relatively short fight we decide this rather lopsided encounter in our favor, and we can now begin the repair and cleanup work. While all of that is going on, Redhawk also finally breaks our prisoner's resistance. This does not mean that she is now joining the colony, only that we can now actually start attempting to recruit her. And even though she's naked and her prison cell is not necessarily the most beautiful, we should still have a good chance of doing that. After all, we successfully cured her of all injuries and illnesses, so all things considered, I don't think there is too much to complain about. Now in the late afternoon then, Admo finally finishes the harp, and with that we are ready to begin our night ceremony. The instrument is not of great quality, perhaps out of spite, but perhaps also because this was Admo's first time making one. In either case, the throne room is ready, so let's call in the bestower. And I would say this is quite the important event, so our entire colony will assemble for this one. Steak has even made another small statue for the occasion. This one features the portrayal of a claw, maybe a small nod to Admo's heroisms of the last episode, but perhaps also entirely unrelated. In any case, Steak's knighthood ceremony is about to begin, and I think I'll let you enjoy this one without me talking over it. And here we are, Steak is now officially a knight. As a result, he has automatically gained the psychic power Beacon. We can also read here that Jake is actually his heir at the moment, and that Steak will now likely be a bit more picky about the way he conducts himself. However, the most important aspect in my opinion is that we are now finally able to trade with the Empire, although I believe Steak will have to be the one doing the actual trading, but still this opens up a lot of possibilities. Speaking of which, we can also choose another permit now, but before doing so, I would actually like to hear your opinion. There are several options here that we could go with. Both the transport shuttle as well as the aerodrone strikes seem very intriguing to me, but we have other options as well, including a laborer team or drops of silver and food. So let me know in the comments down below what you think we should choose, and also let me know who you think should be Steak's heir. Again, at the moment, Jake would be the one inheriting his title, but of course we do have plenty of other options, so let me know down below who your favorite candidate would be. And with that, I think we have reached a good point for the end of today's episode, which brings me to a small surprise that Tofu and I have prepared for you. Because it took me a little longer than anticipated to actually get this episode done, I had enough time to send Tofu the footage of the night ceremony in advance, so today's artwork already features this very special moment in Steakhouse history. And I don't think I can say much about it other than that it looks absolutely amazing, as always, so thank you Tofu also once again for getting it ready just in time for the release of this episode. Also, we have read all of your comments on the last episode and Tofu has created a few social media profiles. So you can find all the links to Facebook, Instagram, and even Patreon as well down below in the description and the comments. So go ahead, show Tofu some love and support over there, and stay tuned for whatever artwork we have waiting for us in the next episode. For today, I think we can make the cut at this point. So as always, if you enjoyed the video, then I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, then you can of course go ahead and subscribe if you haven't done so already, grab some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or check out and maybe even pledge to the Pete Complete Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.